Captain Ryland never liked old places. He worked for the Interstellar Safety Unit, a group that cleaned and closed old buildings on dead planets. His newest mission was simple, or so he thought. He had to check a forgotten alien prison. Deep, in the orbit of a dying red moon. "This place is dead," Ryland said, landing his small ship on the broken landing pad. The prison looked like a shadow of the past. Gray walls, cracked towers, broken lights, dust and silence filled the air. He checked his scanner. No life signs, just weak energy deep inside. "Probably old machines," he muttered, walking in. His boots echoed on metal floors. The halls were cold, dark, and covered in wires and spiderwebs. It was supposed to be empty, but Ryland stopped suddenly. He heard something, crying. It was soft, like a whisper, almost like wind, yet not the wind. It was someone's pain, someone alone. He raised his flashlight, heart beating faster. The scanner still said, "No life signs." But the sound was real. He followed the noise through a narrow hallway, deeper into the darkness, and then he found the cell. The door was thick and old, metal rusted with time, but inside, behind the small window, he saw her, a tiny alien girl, crouched in the corner. No clothes, just her knees pulled to her chest, her long hair falling over her body. She was crying softly, trembling like a broken leaf in winter. Ryland froze. His mind raced. What was a living girl doing here? This place had been abandoned for years. He tapped the scanner again. Still no life signs. Was she a ghost? But when she looked up, their eyes met. She was real, and her eyes were full of tears, fear, and something deeper, like shame. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. She looked too weak to speak, too broken to ask for help. She just shook her head slowly, as if saying, "Don't come closer." Ryland's heart clenched. He had seen battlefields, lost cities, and war survivors, but he had never seen a child look so completely hopeless. She wasn't just forgotten, she had been abandoned like trash. He reached for his comm. "Base, I found a living being, possibly female, possibly a child. She's in bad condition." But the comm only replied with static. He cursed under his breath. No contact, no help, and no time. He stepped closer to the cell. The girl flinched and covered her face, afraid. "It's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you. I'm here to help." She shook her head harder, then whispered one word, so quietly it barely reached him. "Lies." Ryland felt a chill down his spine. How long had she been told lies? How many people had come before? Him only to hurt her more? He knelt down, meeting her at eye level through the glass. "I don't know what happened to you, but I'm not like them," he said. "You don't deserve this." She looked at him again, her lips trembling, tears rolled down her cheeks, and she whispered, "No hope, only pain." Ryland stood up and pulled out his toolkit. The cell door had old alien tech, but nothing he couldn't handle. He started working fast, cutting wires, bypassing systems, unlocking ancient codes. As he worked, a red light above the door blinked on. A voice came from the wall. "Warning, cell breach detected. Defense system armed." He ignored it, heart pounding. The girl backed into the corner, eyes wide with fear. Ryland shouted over the alarm, "Stay down, I'll get you out." With a loud click, the door unlocked. The metal slid open with a hiss of air. She didn't move, still curled in the corner. Ryland stepped inside slowly, careful not to scare her. He took off his jacket and gently covered her shaking body. She gasped, surprised by the soft fabric, by the kindness. "No more chains," he said softly. "You're free now." She looked up at him, lips trembling, and then she fell forward, straight, into his arms, too weak to stand, too tired to cry. She had no strength left, but she whispered again, this time with a tiny flicker of hope, "Don't leave me." Ryland held her close, heart heavy with rage and sorrow. "No one's leaving you again," he promised, but even as he lifted her up, the prison shook, and from the ceiling came a metal voice, cold and sharp, "Unauthorized release confirmed." Termination begins. Rylan looked down at the girl in his arms and then toward the shadows moving in the hall. He wasn't alone anymore. The lights above Rylan's head turned red. Sirens blared, and metal doors began to slam shut across the prison. He clutched the alien girl tightly in his arms, her body still cold and weak. The metal voice echoed again. Prison protocol engaged. Intruder will be eliminated. What kind of place was this? Rylan whispered, running down the hallway. The girl's eyes fluttered open slightly, her voice thin like smoke. They don't want me out. Rylan didn't have time to ask questions. The floor behind him opened with a loud crash. Something mechanical crawled out. Tall, metal guards with glowing eyes and long blades for arms began to follow him. They didn't speak. They were built to kill, not ask questions. He turned a corner and kicked open a rusted door. Inside was a small control room with broken chairs and a dusty console. He set the girl down gently and locked the door behind them. The lock sparked. It would hold for a few minutes, maybe less. The girl curled up on the floor, her thin body trembling. Rylan pulled out a small blanket from his pack and wrapped it around her. She looked up, confused by the kindness. Why? Help? She asked softly. Rylan stared at her. Even in this broken place, she still had beautiful glowing eyes, full of sadness. He sat beside her and said, Because no one deserves to be treated like a thing, not even in the middle of nowhere. He paused, then added, And because I think you've been alone for too long. The girl closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. Rylan stood and turned to the control panel. Dust covered everything, but he wiped it clean and pressed a few buttons. Screens lit up, showing different parts of the prison. There were no other prisoners, no guards, only the machines hunting him now. But one screen showed something strange. A room with hundreds of empty pods, glass tubes, broken and dry, as if they once held living beings. Some were cracked, others melted, all were empty except hers, the last one, still marked with red warning symbols. He leaned closer. The label read, Project A013, Hybrid Class, Dangerous if Uncontrolled. Hybrid? Rylan whispered. He looked back at the girl. She was breathing slowly, her hands tucked under her chin. She looked harmless. But was she? A loud crash pulled him back. One of the robot guards smashed the outer hallway door, red eyes glowing, bright. Rylan pulled his blaster and aimed. The blast hit the machine in the chest, but it didn't fall. It kept coming. The girl sat up, fear in her voice. They don't stop. They don't feel. I noticed, Rylan muttered, backing up. He fired again, hitting a pipe above. The hot steam burst out and slowed the robot down. He grabbed the girl again, this time holding her close and running toward the back exit he saw on the screen, but the path was not easy. Old stairwells collapsed under their feet. Fire came from broken wires, and the whole prison felt like it was alive and angry. The girl whispered something in her language, soft, musical words that made the lights flicker. Rylan looked down, confused. What did you just say? She didn't answer, but the robot chasing them stopped as if stunned. Then its eyes dimmed and it fell with a loud thud. Rylan looked at her in shock. Did you do that? She didn't reply. Her head dropped again. Too weak, too scared. But now Rylan knew something else. She wasn't just a prisoner, she was something powerful. Something someone had tried to erase. They reached a maintenance door marked Shuttle Bay. It was old and sealed, but Rylan kicked it hard and pushed it open. Inside was a tiny emergency escape pod, half covered in dust and cobwebs. He placed the girl inside and buckled her seat. She blinked at him with tired, unsure eyes. Are we leaving? She asked, voice almost gone. Rylan nodded, powering the controls. If this works, yes, but it's been here for decades. The screen flashed red. Access denied. He growled and hit the panel again. Still nothing. But then the girl raised her hand and placed it gently on the screen. Glowing patterns flowed from her skin into the machine. The screen turned green. Welcome, HFY SciFİ. Ryland stared in disbelief. The ship powered up instantly, engines humming like new. The pod shook as it lifted into the air, bursting through the ceiling. Below them, the prison began to fall apart, collapsing like a rotting skeleton. The girl coughed and leaned against him, whispering, "They made me a weapon, then threw me away." Ryland looked at her, confused and angry. "Who did this to you?" She closed her eyes, her voice soft. "The people who called me tool. Machine, not girl, not alive." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but this time she wasn't alone. Ryland held her close and said, "You're not a thing. You're someone. And I'm not letting them take you again." Outside the window, the stars stretched like a river of silver. But behind them, danger was not over. The galaxy had just lost a secret, and someone would want her back. The small escape pod sped away from the broken prison moon. Ryland watched from the pilot seat as the facility collapsed behind them. Flames and smoke rose from the ruins. It was like the moon itself had swallowed the prison in silence. But Ryland knew. This silence was dangerous because now they would come looking. The alien girl sat beside him, her body wrapped in his emergency blanket. She looked out the window with tired eyes. Her fingers touched the glass softly, as if she had never seen the stars before. Ryland glanced at her and asked gently, "Do you remember your name?" She looked at him slowly and shook her head. "They took it," she said quietly. "Gave me numbers, called me A013. Ryland frowned. "That's not a name. That's a code." She gave a small nod and whispered, "I forgot who I was. I stopped trying to remember." He felt a sharp pain in his chest. This girl? She wasn't just hurt. Physically, they had erased her identity, made her feel like nothing but a tool. But now she was free. At least for now. The control screen blinked. Fuel was low. The pod wasn't made for long travel. He'd need to dock at a nearby refueling station fast. Ryland opened the galaxy map and found a tiny outpost on the edge of neutral space. Old, forgotten, and not under any major government. "Perfect for hiding. We'll stop here," he told her. "You need food, medical help, and rest." She looked nervous. "Will they lock me up again?" Ryland shook his head. "Not if I'm with you." He didn't realize how much she needed to hear those words. She stared at him, confused, touched, and scared, all at once, as if waiting for him to turn cold and cruel like the others had before. But he didn't, and slowly, she started to believe him. They landed the pod in a dark hangar, covered in dust and silence. The outpost was old, with flickering lights and rusted walls. But it was still working, still alive. Ryland helped the girl out and walked with her. Toward the main hall, he kept his arm gently around her back. Every time she heard footsteps or metal clanking, she flinched. Inside, an old vendor bot rolled up, offering food. Ryland bought a meal bar and water bottle. He gave them to her. She looked at the food like it was treasure, and when she tasted it, she started crying again. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I forgot what warm food tastes like," she whispered. Her tears weren't from sadness this time, but from remembering what it felt like to be human. Ryland sat beside her and said, "No more cages. No more hunger, I promise you." But outside the hangar, something was watching. Far above the outpost, hidden among the stars, a sleek black ship floated in silence. Inside, a tall figure stood before a glowing screen. He wore armor with the symbol of a forgotten empire. His eyes glowed gold and his voice was deep and cold. "Target A013 has escaped the prison moon." He tapped the screen, showing an image of the girl beside Ryland. "Found by a human." Another voice replied, crackling through a speaker. "She was supposed to be erased." The man smiled cruelly. "Erased? No. She's the last working hybrid, the key to reactivating the machine fleet." He turned to his crew. "Prepare to intercept. I want the human alive, and the girl brought back intact." They powered up their weapons. The hunt had begun. Back. On the outpost, Ryland used an old medical scanner on the girl. Her body was weak but healing. But what shocked him was her DNA. It was unlike anything he had seen before. Mixed strands. Part organic, part machine. Part something else. She wasn't just alien, she was built, crafted for a purpose. She noticed his worried look. "You don't want me anymore?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What?" "No," he replied. "I'm just trying to understand who you really are." She looked down. "They made me control machines. They hurt my people. My kind fought back. We lost." Rylan leaned closer. "You're not a weapon anymore. You're free to be whoever you want to be." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "No one ever said that to me before." But before she could say more, the outpost shook. The lights flickered. The walls rumbled. An alarm echoed through the corridors. "Incoming hostile vessel detected." Rylan stood quickly. His instincts screamed. "They found us." He grabbed the girl's hand and said, "We need to leave now." "But I'm tired," she said, swaying weakly. "I'll carry you," he said, lifting her into his arms again. He ran through the corridors as red lights flashed. Behind him, metal doors opened and boots hit the ground. Soldiers in black armor had landed, and they were coming for her. The outpost shook again. The floor trembled under Rylan's boots. Warning lights blinked red and orange. The girl in his arms clung tightly to his chest, eyes wide with fear. Outside, a dark ship hovered above the outpost. Its engines were silent, its presence like a shadow in the sky. On board, masked soldiers received orders. Recover the asset. Terminate the human if he resists. Rylan ducked behind a metal crate as laser fire hit the hallway behind them. They had no time, no backup, no chance. Unless he acted fast, he looked down at the girl. Her lips were pale, her breathing shallow, but her glowing eyes stared at him. With one message, "Don't leave me." "I won't," he whispered. "I'm getting you out of here." He ran toward the back exit, past broken screens and old supply crates. Bullets flew, walls cracked, but he didn't stop. He kicked open a panel that led to a forgotten maintenance tunnel. Dust and cobwebs choked the air, but it was their only way out. The tunnel led them far from the hangar, down to a quiet chamber filled with old computers. Rylan placed the girl down gently and locked the door. The room had no windows, no guards, just silence and flickering lights. She leaned against a wall, breathing slowly. "Why, are they chasing me?" she asked, her voice soft and broken. "Why now?" Rylan sat beside her. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." He turned to the nearest console and connected his wrist scanner. Data poured onto the screen. Files marked, classified, erased, failed species. And then he found it. Project A-class hybrids. He clicked the file, and the truth hit him like a punch in the gut. Years ago, a secret project had created a small race of machine-linked beings. They could control systems with their minds, speak to ships, bend machines with a thought, but they weren't treated like people. They were treated like weapons made to obey without feelings. Until one day, the hybrids rebelled. They didn't want war. They wanted names, homes, futures. But the creators didn't care. They ordered a full extermination, wiped out the hybrids, or so they believed. Rylan's hand shook as he turned to look at the girl beside him. "You're the last one," he whispered, her eyes filled with tears. "I know," she said quietly. "I saw them fall one by one." She looked away, hiding her face in the blanket. "They locked me in a cold room, said I was too dangerous, too emotional, not useful." Her voice broke. "They took my voice, my name. They said I was broken." Rylan knelt beside her, his voice low but firm. "You're not broken. You survived." He took her hand gently. "You're not a weapon anymore. You're a person, and I won't let them take that from you." She looked at him, her tears shining like stars. "But they'll keep coming." Rylan nodded. "Then let them come. We'll make them regret ever touching you." Suddenly the lights in the room cut out. Darkness fell like a curtain, then the air grew cold and a soft humming filled the silence. From the shadows, a tall armored figure stepped into the room. His voice echoed like thunder. You shouldn't have opened that cell, human. Rylan stepped in front of the girl, blaster drawn. She's not yours. The man laughed coldly. She was never hers. She was ours, created by our hands, designed for us. And now, she will return. The girl trembled behind Rylan, but then, her hand reached forward. She placed her fingers against the wall and the entire room lit up in blue patterns. The lights returned, brighter than before. The floor vibrated with strange energy. The armored man froze. His weapons refused to fire. His armor locked in place. She stood up slowly, still weak, still shaking, but not hiding anymore. You think I'm your property, she said softly. But I have a name now. The man growled. You don't even remember it. She nodded. Not yet. But he gave me something more powerful. She looked at Rylan, voice trembling with strength. He gave me hope. With a final pulse from her hand, the entire outpost's system shut down. Every enemy soldier's armor locked, weapons disabled, ship grounded. Rylan grabbed her hand and whispered, Now's our chance. Run. They escaped into the upper hatch, reached the hangar where a stolen ship waited. It was old, but functional, just enough to escape the orbit. As they flew away, Rylan looked back once more. The outpost faded into space, a memory behind them, but beside him sat the last of a forgotten race, no longer crying, no longer hiding, just breathing and beginning again. Do you want to choose a name? Rylan asked gently. She looked out the window, stars reflecting in her eyes. Yes, she said, but not today, and for the first time. She smiled. The stolen ship drifted through deep space. Rylan checked the scanners. No signs of pursuit, no red warnings, just silence and stars. The girl sat quietly in the co-pilot seat, wrapped in a warm jacket now, legs pulled close, eyes watching the stars. She had not spoken much since the escape, but something in her had changed. She no longer looked like a frightened prisoner. Now she looked like someone who had survived and was thinking. Remembering, Rylan handed her a protein bar and a water bottle. You okay? He asked gently. She gave a small nod. I don't feel like a number anymore. She touched her chest. Still don't remember my name, but I feel something new, like it's growing. He smiled. Maybe you'll find your name when you're ready. She looked at him and whispered, You gave me hope. I want to keep that. But peace never lasted long in the galaxy. Far away, a hunter ship floated like a shark in the void. Its body was black as night, engines silent, no lights, no signal, but inside, it was very much alive. A tall figure stood on the bridge, dressed in dark armor with red scars down his face. He was a bounty hunter, known in the darkest circles as Corin the Tracker. He didn't speak often. He didn't fail. And he had been paid more than a fortune to find Project A013 and the foolish human who freed her. Corin tapped his device, watching an image of the hybrid girl, taken from old military files. Her eyes were bright with fear, her body bruised, but behind those eyes, even then, was power, and power could be sold. She's still alive, Corin muttered, and he's flying straight into the neutral zones. How kind of him to come to me. He locked onto Rylan's ship and set his course with one cold word: engage. Meanwhile, Rylan's ship floated near a quiet asteroid field. He planned to hide for a while, make repairs, and refuel. He didn't trust big ports anymore, not with her aboard. Too many eyes, too many spies. As the girl helped him check cables, she paused, her fingers touching the wall gently. Something's wrong, she whispered. Rylan turned to her. What do you feel? She closed her eyes. There's a signal. It's far, but it's following us. He rushed to the scanner. A red blip appeared behind them, moving fast, silent. No ID, no signal. A ghost. Only one kind of ship flew like that. A hunter. Rylan's heart dropped. Get to the back room now. The girl obeyed without question. He powered the shields and checked the weapons, basic, weak, almost useless. This was a cargo ship, not a fighter. Suddenly, the ship shook. A blast hit the engines, lights flickered. They were being pulled in, away. Tractor beam. Rylan gritted his teeth and opened a channel. "This is Captain Rylan. We are unarmed. This is a civilian vessel." A cold voice replied, "You have stolen property. Return the hybrid, or die with her." Rylan's hands tightened into fists. "She's not property. She's a person." The voice laughed. "She's worth more than 10 planets. You think kindness will save you?" The ship shook again. Boarding had begun. He ran to the back where the girl waited, her eyes wide, skin glowing faintly. "They're here," she whispered. He nodded. "We fight." She stood up slowly, barefoot on the cold floor. She looked up at him, eyes shining. "If I lose control, you might have to stop me." Rylan shook his head. "I'll never stop you, but I'll protect you." The door burst open. Koran entered, his armor black and marked with alien symbols. He aimed his plasma blade at Rylan. "Move aside, human." But Rylan stepped in front of her. "You'll have to go through me." Koran smiled under his mask. "As you wish." He lunged, but before the blade could strike, the girl raised her hand. Blue lines glowed along her arms and face. The walls responded. Metal twisted. Wires sparked. Energy danced. Koran's blade shut off. His armor locked. His helmet cracked with a scream of static. What is this?" "I'm not yours," she said calmly. "I was never yours." Koran struggled, falling to his knees. His own armor was crushing him. Under her control, Rylan stepped forward, eyes wide in awe. She was glowing brighter now, floating slightly. Above the floor, not a machine, not a child. Something beyond. A living key to the galaxy's forgotten power. With one final breath, she whispered, "Sleep." Koran's body dropped unconscious. His systems dead. The room fell silent again. Rylan caught her as she dropped, the glow fading. "You did it," he whispered. She looked up at him, tired but smiling. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said. "But they won't stop, will they?" He shook his head. "No, they won't. But neither will I." He held her close. And somewhere, far away, the galaxy had just begun to whisper her name again. The ship floated in silence, drifting slowly past a line of dead satellites. Inside, Rylan sat beside the hybrid girl, watching her sleep. Her head rested on his jacket, her breathing calm, but her body still glowed faintly, pulsing with soft, blue light. Like a heartbeat from another world, she had used her power again, and every time she did, Rylan saw it. She was dangerous, but not because she wanted to be, because others had designed her that way. He turned to the console and locked. The ship's course to a quiet system called Solara Deep, an abandoned mining belt. No patrols, no governments, perfect for hiding. For now. But Rylan's mind was racing. He opened the encrypted data he had stolen from Koran's crashed system. Dozens of files lit up the screen, some too corrupted to read, but one folder remained untouched. Project Silence. The creation of A-class hybrids. Rylan opened it slowly, and what he saw chilled his soul. Project A-class began as a secret attempt to create the perfect machine controller. The subject must be alive, but programmable, thinking, but loyal. Emotional responses removed, memories erased. Subjects who resist reprogramming are labeled failures. All such failures are to be disposed of via deep cryoprison or termination. File 17A. Subject A013 displayed high emotional resistance, refused weapon protocol, showed empathy, cried for others. Final decision. Subject not suitable. Erase and store. Rylan stared at the screen, fists clenched. They buried her alive. Because she had emotions, because she refused to become a weapon, because she cared. He turned to look at her again. She was still sleeping, curled gently like a child. But now he understood. The glow, the control, the connection to machines. It wasn't evil, it was a gift, and they tried to kill it. Suddenly she stirred, blinking awake. Her voice was soft. "You read it, didn't you?" Rylan nodded. Yes. She sat up slowly, wrapping the blanket tighter around herself. Her voice was distant, almost numb. I wasn't supposed to survive. They told me that emotions were mistakes. But I couldn't stop crying. I felt too much. I remembered things I wasn't supposed to remember. Rylan sat beside her. You remembered love? She looked at him, surprised. Nobody said that word to me before. He smiled sadly. Then it's time you heard it. You survived because of love. Your love for others. Your pain for what happened to your kind. You're not a failure. You're proof that they were wrong. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, but from the weight of truth. I don't know how to carry it, she whispered, all that pain, all those memories. You don't have to carry it alone, Rylan said, placing his hand over hers. Not anymore. But while they spoke in the quiet ship, others were watching. At the edge of the Solara Deep System, a sleek white vessel uncloaked. Unlike the Hunter's dark and deadly ship, this one was elegant, clean, almost peaceful. Inside sat a woman in a silver robe, her hair glowing faintly like moonlight. Her name was Director Valea, and she had once been the chief scientist behind Project Silence. She stared at the screen, showing Rylan and the girl together. Subject A0113 is alive, she whispered, voice unreadable. Her assistant beside her spoke nervously. She wasn't destroyed as ordered. The Hunter failed. Valea nodded slowly. Of course he did. He used fear. That girl was designed to resist fear. She closed her eyes, remembering old decisions. We made a mistake, not by building her, but by abandoning her. Her assistant frowned. Do you wish to recover her? No, Valea said, eyes locked on the screen. I wish to speak to her. One last time. Back on Rylan's ship, a signal appeared, unlike any other. It wasn't encrypted, it wasn't aggressive, it was gentle. Rylan frowned, tapping the console. It's not a trap signal, he muttered. It's a request. He looked at the girl. She nodded slowly. Let me hear it. The screen lit up. Director Valea's face appeared, older now, but still sharp. Her voice was calm, even kind. A0113, you don't have to run anymore. The girl's eyes narrowed. You called me a failure. Valea lowered her head. Yes, I did. Because I was afraid of what you could feel, but now I see that your feelings were the one thing that made you right. The girl didn't speak. Valea continued. I can't erase what we did, but I can offer you something we never gave before. A choice. Rylan looked at the girl. She stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she spoke. I want a name. Valea's eyes softened. Then choose one. Let it be yours, not ours. The girl turned to Rylan. He smiled. You've earned it. Pick anything you want. She thought for a moment, then whispered, Call me Ilara. Rylan repeated it. Ilara. For the first time, she felt real. Not a number, not an object, just Ilara. But peace was still far away, because not everyone wanted her free, and some would kill for what she now understood. Ilara. The name felt strange on her lips, yet warm in her heart. For the first time in her life, she was not a number, not an experiment, not a failure. She was someone. Rylan sat across from her in the cockpit, studying the stars. His hand rested near the blaster, always ready, always protective. He had saved lives before, but this time it felt different. This wasn't just a mission. This was a promise. You chose well, he said softly, glancing at her. Ilara suits you. She smiled faintly, still shy but stronger now. Then I will keep it. But even as she spoke those words, the galaxy was already moving against her. In the central star hub of the Dominion Council, news spread like fire. The hybrid lives. The weapon girl has been freed. The human has betrayed the balance. Across hundreds of star systems, leaders and warlords whispered her name in fear and greed. Some wanted her destroyed. Others wanted her captured and controlled. Few believed she was anything but a dangerous tool, and now, everyone was hunting her. Back on Ryland's ship, the silence shattered as the warning alarm screamed. Multiple signals were approaching. Not one, not two, 5 ships. Ryland cursed under his breath and pulled the ship hard toward the asteroid belt. "They've found us," he growled. Ilara gripped the chair, her eyes glowing faintly. "They won't stop, will they?" "No," Ryland said, jaw tight, "but neither will I." The first enemy ship fired. The blast rocked their hull. Sparks flew from the console. Ryland swore and fought the controls. "We can't outrun them, not all of them." Ilara stood, placing her small hand on the wall. "Then we don't run." Ryland turned toward her sharply. "No, you're too weak. You'll burn yourself out." She shook her head, her voice steady. "I'm not weak anymore, Ryland. I'm tired of being afraid. If I don't fight now, I'll never be free." Before he could stop her, her body glowed brighter. The ship's systems hummed, lights blazing like stars. Outside, the engines roared with power far beyond their design. She raised her hand, and the enemy ships froze mid-space. The hunters inside screamed as their controls failed. Engines died, shields collapsed, weapons refused to fire. One ship even turned against its own ally, blasting it to pieces before shutting down completely. Ryland watched in stunned silence. She wasn't just controlling their systems, she was rewriting them. "Ilara," he whispered, "you're unstoppable." Her glow dimmed as she sank back into the chair, exhausted but alive. "No," she said, breathing hard. "I'm free. That's all I want." But just as the last ship fell silent, another signal filled the air. One stronger, darker, more powerful. A massive war cruiser emerged from hyperspace, blocking the stars. Its shadow swallowed everything around it. It was no bounty hunter, no scavenger, no simple hunter. It was the Dominion flagship. Ryland's face hardened. "They sent the whole empire for you." The screen lit up, showing the face of a high commander, with eyes cold as steel. "Return the hybrid, human," he demanded. "She is a weapon of the Dominion. She belongs to us." Ryland stood tall, his voice sharp. "She belongs to no one." The commander sneered. "You think one human can fight an empire?" Ryland glanced at Ilara, who was slowly sitting upright again. Her glow returned, faint but steady. He smiled. "No. But one human and one girl with hope? That's enough." Ilara stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. "I am Ilara. I am not a weapon. I am not your property. I am alive." Her voice carried across the comms, amplified into every enemy ship, and something happened that none expected. Some soldiers lowered their weapons, some looked at each other in silence. For the first time, they heard her not as a machine, but as a person. The commander slammed his fist, furious. "Do not. Listen, she is dangerous." But Ilara raised her hand again, and the ships around the flagship began to power down, one by one, not from force, but from choice. Her words had touched their hearts, even through fear. "I was meant to be silent," she said, tears in her eyes, "but I choose to speak, and I will never be silent again." The flagship fired a desperate shot, but Ryland turned the ship, shielding her with everything he had. The blast shook them to the core. Systems failed, alarms blared, yet somehow, they were still alive. Ilara placed her hand on his, steadying him. "You saved me from the cage. Now let me save us both." She unleashed her full glow, brighter than any star. The Dominion's systems collapsed. The flagship's weapons melted. Its shields broke. Its engines shut down completely. The massive war cruiser drifted, helpless, silent. The galaxy had just witnessed something impossible. When the glow faded, Ilara collapsed into Ryland's arms. Her breathing was weak, but her eyes still shone with life. "Did I do it?" she whispered. Ryland held her close, smiling softly. You did more than that. You gave them something they've never seen before. Truth. She smiled faintly, her head resting on his chest. Then maybe the galaxy will finally let me live. Rylan looked out at the broken fleet, the silent stars, and the endless road ahead. They'll keep chasing us. They'll never stop. Alara whispered, her voice like a promise. Then we'll run together, not as weapon and soldier, not as captive and rescuer, but as family. Rylan tightened his hold on her. Yes, family. And in the quiet of the ship, with the galaxy watching, the human and the alien girl began their new journey. Not as victims of the past, but as a future no one had ever dared to imagine.